I know it's been an early and a long morning for you, and as soon as we can cover this session, you can all go eat lunch. This is the third version of Advising Scholarships and Student Success. My name is Colby Harris. I'm the Associate Dean of Students in the college. I am here today representing the Academic Advising Office. With me are my colleagues Jeremy Wright in the middle. He is the Assistant Director for the Center for College Student Success. And on the end, we have Nick Morris, who's the Assistant Director of the College Center for Scholarly Advancement. So today what we're going to do is we're going to give you a brief overview of who we are, how we connect to each other, and how we work with your students. We're going to focus a lot on what happens in the first year, since that's the thing that you and your families are going to encounter first. And we are going to try and get through the presentations quickly so that we leave ample time for questions at the end. Okay? Okay. So first of all, we are all part of the College Dean of Students office. So for those of you who are familiar with other institutions that maybe have a College of Arts and Sciences model and students are kind of in these different divisions of like College of Nursing and things like that, at the University of Chicago, all undergraduate students are students in the college, okay? And so we are the College Dean of Students office, meaning that every single undergraduate student at this institution goes through our office at least once a year, more often once a quarter at least. And so we are here to help students navigate their academic path through the college. That said, we take a very holistic approach. And so even though at the heart we're talking about academics, we want to hear about all of it from our students because that helps us get to know them better. So academic advising, student success, and scholarly advancement are all sort of under the same umbrella. We are located in Harper Memorial Library. Some of you might hear about the Harry Potter room. If it's the Harry Potter Library, that's the third floor of our building. If it's the Harry Potter Dining Hall, that's Burton Judson. And I'm sorry we put the slide up here because I think the reading room is closed today.
It is.
Yeah, but if you come back for Family Weekend, it'll be open on that Friday. Okay, so I'm going to talk about academic advising first because this is something that each and every one of your students will interact with their academic advisor multiple times this year. So first off, every student in the college has an academic advisor in our office. We are professional advisors, not faculty advisors. And students are basically randomly assigned to an advisor the summer before they get here. They already know who their advisor is. They'll be meeting them face-to-face tomorrow morning, bright and early. So what advisors will do is, one, we focus on this one-on-one relationship with the students. I always tell my students that the better I know them, the better I can help them, okay? We will help them understand themselves, the curriculum, and what they need to do to get to graduation, and make connections between those, okay? We meet with them regularly during O Week this week. All of your children will meet with their advisor twice in groups to prepare for registration, and once one-on-one for a 20-minute registration appointment later this week, okay? Once we get through orientation, students are, of course, welcome to come in whenever they feel the need. They can email us. They can set up an appointment ahead of time. Some of us have walk-in hours at regular times. But students must come see us at least once a quarter for what we call a required meeting, every quarter their first year on campus. So for transfer students, that also applies. Transfer students, every quarter, first year on campus, they need to come see their advisor. And the reason for that is twofold. One, it's the best way for us to get to know our students is to see them frequently. And also, a lot of stuff happens in the first year on campus, right? You come in thinking you want to do one thing, and then you think you want to do something else, and then you go back to the old thing. And so we want to be there to help the students think through all of this as they're going through it. Once a student gets through their first year on campus, they only have to come see their advisor for a required meeting once per year. We'll send them a reminder when that time is coming up. Most students come in every quarter. Jeremy, do your students tend to, my students tend to come in every quarter. So I like that though. because that means that they enjoy speaking with their advisor. They feel like it's valuable to spend time with them, and it helps us keep the relationship going. So, okay. So, if you haven't already guessed, we really focus on the individual student. One of the things I always tell my students in the tomorrow morning, actually, is that there was pretty much one path for them to get here, right? They're always told, you have to do this, and you have to do this, and you have to do this, right? And then they meet me, and I said, there is no one path anymore. Every single one of you is going to have a different path. That path is not going to be straight. It's going to curly Q on itself. It's going to double back. It's going to, but throughout all of that, I'm still your advisor, right? So we really focus on the individual student, the individual path, okay? We are advisors and not problem solvers, or, well, we're not parent stand-ins, right? So we are not trying to be your student's parent on campus. What we're trying to be is your student's sounding board. So we are experts on the curriculum. We are experts on the requirements. We know a lot of people and a lot of offices on campus. So if you went to other panels earlier this morning, you were hearing from career advancement and financial aid and international affairs and all these other offices across campus. We talk to them on a regular basis, okay? And so what we want is for your student, if they have any sort of thing they're concerned about or really excited about, share it with their advisor, okay? Because what we found is that very naturally, if something's on their mind, they will tell you, or they will tell their older sibling, or they will tell their best friend at home, which is great. But chances are none of those people did their undergraduate degrees at the University of Chicago recently, right? So chances are if they tell their advisor is more likely to get them to the resources that they need quicker and in a less painful way, right? So we want your students to share things with you, but we also want them to share it with us because we can actually help them figure out what to do next on this given campus, okay? What students can expect out of their advisors. They can expect us to be experts on campus and requirements and rules and people. They can expect us to treat them like adults and model the type of interactions and behaviors that they're going to be doing basically from here on out, right? And we will respond quickly and accurately to their questions and concerns. Sometimes if we get an email that's, like this long, the response might be, those are great questions, come in, right? But we will respond, okay? And one of the things that we really work to do in the first year of students being on campus is help them to redefine success for themselves, right? Because probably up until this point in their lives, success was getting into the college of their dreams. They're here now, so they kind of need another goal. They also are going to have to find their own path, so they're all going to have different goals, right? And so that is something that we know all students have to do, and we also know it's an individualized process, and we know it's not necessarily easy, right? So that's one of the things that advisors are really working with their students on when they make them come in every quarter that first year. So a student will have an advisor in our office all 4 years on campus. We are the ones who are going to meet with them regularly for required meetings. We're the ones responsible to make sure that they're actually meeting their degree requirements, okay? But once a student declares a major or minor, they also get additional subject-specific support from their department. The model for how that support is given varies from department to department, but basically what we're doing is increasing the number of eyes and the number of resources for students as they become honed in on what they want to do during college and after college. Okay. Hold on. Okay. So we started covering a little bit of this in adjustment to college, and so there's a lot of redefinition that happens in this first year. Redefining what good grades are. I tell my students up front, you will get your worst grade you have ever gotten at the University of Chicago. And it's okay, all right? The other thing I tell my students is, sometime during the first year, They're going to think that admissions made a mistake, they weren't supposed to be let in, they don't belong here. And at that moment, I want them to look to the left, look to the right, and one of those students, maybe both, have had that same exact thought. They might be having the same thought at the same time, okay? Like, we know that those are normal things as students transition to life at the University of Chicago. Okay, and what we found is by being upfront about it, that means that when the students encounter that first bad grade, or when students encounter those feelings like, I don't know how to do this, that they say, you know what, Colby told me this was going to happen. I'm going to go talk to her about it, and it's okay, right? What we don't want them to do is feel like they're the only student that's facing that issue, because that is pretty much never true, okay? You know, they've been with you for a long time. It's a big change to move away, sometimes thousands of miles away, right? So they have control now over their schedules 24 hours a day. They have to figure out that, you know, sleeping and eating help, right? And so these are kinds of the things that we see our first years go through. We're well versed in helping them think through it and work through it. A lot of them come in, we're a liberal arts college, we really push students to take advantage of that, and kind of, this is your opportunity to take a class that you will never have the chance to take again, right? Because if you think about it, if you work right after college, you're going to be focused on your work. If you go to grad school, that's very, very narrow and focused, right? So this is your chance to take, you know, a creative writing class just because you wanted to, or, you know, things like that. So we encourage students to explore, and if they decide to do something that's different from what they originally thought, that's okay. A lot of times students might struggle with, again, having control over their 24 hours, and also University of Chicago is hard, okay? It's harder than high school. So sometimes students were smart, crazy smart, right? Smart enough to get through high school without actually studying. That doesn't necessarily work here. And so we have lots of resources on campus to help students with time management, how to not procrastinate, you know, study skills, turning your notes into papers, you know, those types of things. So again, if your students come in and talk to us, we can try and tease out what might be going on and point them to resources. We will ask them about everything. If they're having a roommate problem, ultimately they'll have to talk to housing, but we want to know about it because it impacts their life and it impacts their life as a student, right? What we really do and what we really ask you as parents to do is to try and resist the urge to solve the problem for them, okay? Because we really view them as, this is like 4 years of practicing being an adult. And the more practice they get, the better they will be prepared when they graduate, right? And so we'll help them think through possibilities and options. They make the choice. And even if my students make a choice that I'm like, no, not that one, I'm still their advisor. They still make the choice. We move on from there. And then they see all the consequences that they didn't imagine. And then we work from there, right? So it can be really hard for parents, I'm a parent too, to like not just jump in and fix it because it's like, I know what you need here. But we try really hard to not do that for our students, and we ask that you partner with us in that. Okay, let's see. Went backwards. Okay, so one last quick thing, FERPA. So this is a college thing. This is a federal rule. It's called the Buckley Amendment if you want to look it up. So basically, what the thing that's relevant to you today is that federal law views college students different from high school students. By virtue of the fact that they are college students, has nothing to do with their age at matriculation, just with the fact that they're college students, they have control over their records, okay? And that is, I understand, very different from how high school is, okay? They have the opportunity to see their records. They also have the opportunity to not have their records shared, okay? And so that's very different from how things are at the high school level, so we like to point that out to you. So by and large, we cannot share information with you. We can always listen. We're always happy to listen, but my conversations with my students are private, and so I'm not going to tell you about the conversation, right? But I'm happy if you have concerns, give me a call, and I'm happy to listen to it. And I will fold it into what I know of your child, right? The exceptions to this is if we have a concern for your child's health, safety, well-being, or the health, safety, well-being of other students, we will reach out to you. Okay, so if we think something is seriously amiss or if we are concerned about that, we will reach out to you and share what is relevant. Okay. And the last one here is notifying parents of a change in student status. So if a student goes on a leave of absence, if they go on to academic probation, if we have your email, we will send you an email. If we don't have your email, we'll send you an old-fashioned letter. Okay. So that is just a quick rundown on the academic advising side, and I'm going to invite Jeremy up here to talk about CCSS.
A little taller. I'm a little taller. Okay. How does this work? I got it. Don't worry about it, friends. Hello. Okay, so good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. If you've been around, I tabled yesterday at the resource fair, so some of this information might be a little familiar, but the Center for College Student Success was founded last year, so we just had our one-year anniversary at the end of August. We're an office located in Harper on the 4th floor in the West Tower. And we're an office that celebrates and supports our students from all backgrounds, right? We aid in the transition and continued success of all students in the college. But many of the resources and supports that we have might be particularly beneficial to students who are the first in their family to go to university, even if their parents went to an international university, we mean an American university, who may come from under-resourced backgrounds or high schools, or who may be undocumented, documented, or come from families with mixed status backgrounds. Additionally, another easy way for you to know if your student is most likely connected to our office already, if your student's an Odyssey scholar, they already get all of my emails. And hopefully I saw you last night at the reception, and I'll see them tomorrow or on Wednesday at their reception. But a way to understand our office is a tripartite mission, a three-part mission of providing advising, resources, and support. So talk a little bit about the resources that we have. We're an actual physical space, as I mentioned, in Harper Library. You can kind of see one side of our office there. First and foremost, we're a community space and a safe space. So students come up to our center during the hours that we're open, 8 to 8 p.m. now. We have extended hours, and they hang out. They study, they talk to their friends, they ask us questions if they're afraid to go ask questions somewhere else. They nap on the couch because sometimes the sleep catches up with them. Whatever they need, the center's open. It's staffed with student coordinators who are there from 1 p.m. to 8 p.m. to answer any questions when the professional staff isn't there. We have a textbook and laptop lending library, and so textbooks, I don't know if you know this, are insanely expensive nowadays. And so maybe your students might want to buy their own textbooks through Barnes & Noble, through Seminary Co-op, and that's fine. But if at any point they need some supplemental support, they could log on to our website or come and talk to us, and we have about 1,500 volumes that we're able to lend out to students at no charge. They keep them for the quarter, they return them, and then the next person benefits. This year we've also added laptops, and so we have 5 laptops that can be loaned out on a short-term basis. This is usually for students, maybe their laptop broke. And they're going to get a new one either through your help or their own, but they just need a stopgap measure, and so we do have that this year. We have a printing station. Students sign up for a profile. They get 100 free pages of printing each quarter. Emergency loans, so once again, the unforeseen sometimes happens. And so through our office, it's almost no questions asked, but they would come in, talk to us, and we can provide a no interest, flexible repayment plan for a small time loan to get them to whatever date they need. We have a variety of workshops and events for students to help them acclimate to the college. One of our hallmark series is called Navigating. Navigating the University, you see one of the advertisements there. This is specifically when we're talking about financial aid and navigating the university. Financial aid is a very complex situation that is difficult for even me to understand, and I worked with that office every day. But students have questions. For example, what happens to my financial aid if I want to study abroad? What happens to my financial aid if I move off campus? Do I have to reapply for financial aid? What happens with taxes? And a variety of other questions related to that. So students can come to one of the workshops or all of the workshops, but that's just one example. A variety of support. So we have mentoring programs. This incoming year, some of your students may be assigned to the college's first peer mentoring program. It's called the Maroon Mentors. They'll be assigned to mentoring families. So 3 incoming students assigned to an upper class student. We have a variety of resources and engagements for them. Really, it's a chance for them to come together and realize that they're not in this alone, right? You know they're not in it alone, but as Colby mentioned, sometimes they just really feel that. And so this is just another way for them to be supported. We also have a first-generation alumni mentoring program. So for many of our students, they come in and they're looking to life after college, even though they haven't started yet. And they don't know what it means to go work in an office for the first time, or what it means to really become the doctor they've dreamed of being their entire lives. And so what we seek to do is to connect those predominantly second and third year students, including some fourth year students, with UChicago alum who are in their chosen fields. So they can ask those questions of what did it mean? What did you need to do here to get where you are now? Or also, how did you get your first apartment after college? How did you maintain your friendship networks? So once again, providing a safe space for that. We do increased faculty engagement. So very often we hear students want to do research with their faculty members. They want to go to office hours, but they're afraid because they don't know if they're going to say something inappropriate or if it's appropriate to reach out. The easy answer is yes. Faculty members want to talk to their students. They especially want to talk about their research. So what we do is we provide kind of low stakes opportunities for students to come in, usually over a lunchtime or dinner. Faculty members come, they talk about their research and answer student questions. Community and celebration. So we have a variety of opportunities for students to come together and share their stories, right? So maybe they're a student who is first in their family to go to college, first generation American, and they think they're having a difficult time. And all they're focusing on is the negatives, right? They got their first B, they're here and they don't feel like they belong, that imposter syndrome that Colby spoke about. What we aim to do is help them realize how much they've done to get here and how integral they are to the success of this university. And so we have a variety of resources and opportunities to celebrate in their greatness. Education and advocacy. So in addition to direct student support, our office, in collaboration with many students on part of their own advocacy, we identify institutional barriers to their success. So for example, you might have heard about the book charge program where students can charge books to their accounts. That was because students came to us and identified an issue that they were getting their refunds too late to be able to afford their books right away. And so we helped with that. We've helped get Saturday night dinners on the books. If you haven't heard about Saturday night dinners, you'll hear about them eventually, and a variety of other things. And so we work very closely with a variety of student organizations and student advocates to help make the institution an even greater place than it already is. And something for you all to know is that we have family resources online. So if you ever navigate to our website, you'll notice on community and support, there's a tab where there'll be a variety of things for you. For example, tips that you might want to consider when your students come home for the first time after break. They might be a vegetarian now, just so you know. And that will probably be fleeting, or it might not be. But we recognize that they couldn't be here without you, and we wouldn't want to be here without you. And so just as much as we support them, we realize we want to support you as well, because essentially, you're all now going to the University of Chicago. And so please, if you're interested, check on that and let me know if you need anything. One other thing that I'd just like to point out, we're in the Dean of Students office, and so as Colby mentioned, all students are assigned an academic advisor. It's possible that your student's advisor is in our office. So there's myself, the Assistant Dean of Students and Director of the office, Devin Moore. We both advise small caseloads, and then 4 full-time advisors. So everything that Colby mentioned about being experts about the curriculum, knowing everyone on campus and being able to support students as they navigate those resources, we do that as well. But as Colby also mentioned, it's really about a holistic approach. And so very often I have students in my office and in my colleagues' offices crying because it's stressful here sometimes. Or maybe they just really feel like they were that admissions mistake. Or maybe they're missing home and they don't know how to tell you. Maybe they got their first B and they think they can no longer be the doctor they wanted. Maybe they decide they don't like chemistry at all, thereby meaning they cannot be the doctor that they wanted. But for them, that's a grave thing, right? Because they really wanted to get that job that they knew was secure, maybe even sometimes to support you after you've supported them for so long. And so all of those conversations are happening in all of the advising offices, but you'll find, particularly for the student populations that I mentioned, that is what I spend a lot of my time doing. And so please know that your student has a space on campus, and most likely they'll have multiple. But if you're ever worried, our office is open to them, and it's a home-like feel, and we're always there to answer any questions. The university is rife with resources, but sometimes it's overwhelming for students. And so at the very least, we're a space where no question is too big or too small, and we're happy to walk them through the process. So I'd like now to ask Nick Morris to come up here and talk about one of our other partner offices.
Thank you, everybody. Jeremy. So again, Nick Morris, College Center for Scholarly Advancement. Our office is tasked with promoting the awareness of and sort of facilitating the process of applying for external grants and fellowships. These are nationally competitive scholarships. We do this generally through outreach, mainly information sessions for through the internet. So we have a number of different topics. Some of them are more general. First years are particularly interested in Fellowships 101, introducing them to the process. But we also offer information sessions on international opportunities, second year strategies, public interest fellowships. Our office kind of helps get the good word out there. One of the other resources that we offer and find particularly useful for students to engage with is our website, ccsa.uchicago.edu. On there, we maintain an opportunities database, which lists north of 300 awards as we constantly update it. And for students, it is sortable by year, major, their academic interest, and it tends to be a pretty good way of kind of starting the conversation, figuring out what opportunities might be useful for them to consider. We also have individual advising appointments with students to help them identify and more sort of fine-tune approach to their interest in a particular fellowship and assist in strategically planning for them. We also closely mentor students through a rigorous application process. So for example, the Fulbright Grant is a postgraduate award for students who want to study abroad after graduation, conducting research or teaching English. The application will come due early October. We start the outreach process for that in February. So students are revising, brainstorming, thinking about different ways to get connected to faculty mentors and different resources on campus from basically April through October. It's a long, lengthy process, but one that tends to pay serious dividends. So for first year specifically, I mentioned our Fellowships 101. This is an opportunity to really kind of get oriented to the process of applying for these competitive awards. Most kind of famously, there's the Rhodes Scholarship, Marshall, Fulbright I mentioned. Kind of thinking strategically is one of the things we help students do. For example, with the Rhodes Scholarships, in order to be competitive, you are going to need 8 letters of recommendation. So starting to think early and often about how to develop and maintain faculty relationships and mentors is crucial to your success. Additionally, we do that sort of 30,000 foot. Sometimes with freshmen, first years, they will be very eager. And so we'll have that conversation just about their goals and what they're interested in. There are also a handful of opportunities available to first-year students. The Critical Language Scholarship, Fulbright US, UK, Commission, Summer Institutes. These are, the Critical Language Scholarship is the Fulbright are summer opportunities for first-year students. They're immersive, and they have a particular end goal in terms of either new language proficiency or an enrichment experience in one of a UK institution of higher education. Additionally, one of the big things that we're tasked with is really kind of helping to promote a rightly oriented awareness of these opportunities, demythologizing. I said roads earlier, and oftentimes people will think, well, like it's a 3.95 GPA and a White House internship, and they're going to go work for Google. I'm like, that's great. I wouldn't dissuade you from applying for a Rhodes Scholarship if that's you. But however, there are innumerable opportunities for students who are succeeding and really just kind of want the goalposts pushed back. They've achieved in many different ways. It's not all about GPA. There are awards that are really geared towards public service, environmental work. The Udall, which is listed here, is for students with an activist environmental approach. Goldwater is for students who are interested in the STEM and pursuing STEM fields and interested in pursuing a research PhD. But that's really one of the things we do, is that there tends to be an opportunity for students to find an award or a scholarship that can kind of help further their goals. And that's part of the process is what we call the value of the process. Applying for these national awards is almost always inclusive of a personal statement or a statement of grant purpose, essentially having the student write out their academic hopes and dreams, and even professionally, onto 3 or fewer pages, and that is a grim and gruesome process. So we kind of help them try to figure out how to best craft a coherent narrative out of their undergraduate experience. That's part of the advising process as well, is making sure that they can kind of craft an intentional approach to their education, that they are getting the most out of it and kind of make a good argument for why they would be a great Fulbright scholar or a Truman Scholar, something of that nature. Yeah, I think it's also important to note we do work with first years. We also work with all years as well as alumni. So there are opportunities that will be available to them after they graduate as well, and our office is here to support them. So I think in the nature of time, I will transition over to a question and answer. Here's our contact information. Thank you very much. All right, so thank you. All right, we have one in the back.
Hi, thank you so much. I had a quick question about the 2 different advisors, the CSS advisor and the regular academic advisor. If it's 2 different people, how is that coordinated, or do you regularly meet to share notes?
Sure. So first-year students, if they have an advisor in the Center for College Student Success, that is their academic advisor. So they get all the support, the same thing that Colby talked about. Our advisors are also well-versed in supporting students who are first-gen, low-income, or undocumented, because there are some other nuances to their college experience. And so if a student is assigned to our office, that is their academic advisor. However, if they're not assigned to our office, and some of them aren't, they can then come in and we're essentially just another resource. And in that way, the CCSS advisors are in all of the advising meetings, and that's part of the larger staff.
In the back here.
Oh. I have a simple question. What is the language requirement?
So it's a simple question. It is not as simple of an answer. So in one sentence, our language requirement is that all college students must demonstrate full competency, proficiency, equivalent to 1 year of college level study. So for a modern language that has full reading, writing, speaking, they're going to have to demonstrate all of them. For a less modern language that's lacking, say, speaking, it would be primarily reading and writing. And so it varies. So that's the requirement in a nutshell. How do you demonstrate that is where it gets a little trickier. And so generally speaking, AP language qualifying scores is one way that a lot of students meet it. Each language has picked a slightly different number cutoff for meeting competency because they have different feelings about their particular AP exam. But that's one common way. Another common way is we have an incredible number of languages here taught at the university, from the very, very popular French, Spanish that everyone had in high school, to Urdu and what else do we have? Akkadian, Tibetan, Bosnian, Serbian, Croatian. We have a lot of languages. So a lot of students study languages here. And if they complete with a quality grade, so not a pass-fail, but an ABCD kind of grade, the end of a first-year sequence, that meets competency. And then the other common way is for students who have been schooled or lived large portions of their lives abroad, they can petition to receive competency through that experience.
I believe the mic.
My student has two majors, which is not related, computer science and political science. Does he get two academic advisors, and how do they choose their classes? Is it 50-50? And then when do you start your internship? And in this case for him, how does he know where to intern? Is it in computer science or in political science?
So I'll go with the first question. As far as double majors, and this is a good thing for all of you to hear. If a double major makes sense for a student, great. Many times it doesn't. And so some of our conversations are really trying to drill down to why a student wants to do that. If it's just to get multiple degrees because they think that's better, that isn't necessarily the case. And so we'll have that conversation. However, when students are interested in a double major, we tomorrow, on Monday and on Tuesday, will be talking to the students about the degree requirements generally. So you may know about the core curriculum at the University of Chicago. Every student completes the core, right? It's a liberal arts foundation. Then students complete their major requirements and then electives. What often happens is they'll work with their advisor to figure out how those degrees will overlap. Right? The major courses for one class might count as the electives towards another, right? And so what their advisor does is they help them map out what it would look like to do that major. Sometimes it is physically impossible. Other times it is, and we just want to talk to them about what their life might be like during that time, right? So I hope that answers your question. It's not 50-50. We'll go through the requirements. We'll see what can double count anywhere. And we'll make it the most streamlined process for them as possible. Regarding an internship, that's once again their unique decision. They'll go through the process of working with career advancement, honing their skills. They'll start applying for internships if they're going this summer. If they're an Odyssey student, there are specific requirements they have to meet, and they'll be given that information. And then they'll have their first internship. Usually, it really doesn't matter if it is in political science or computer science, right? So a lot of the times, that first internship is about being employable, learning what it means to work for 10 weeks full time, right? And being able to talk about those transferable skills. But once again, that process is going to begin directly with them this quarter when they start meeting with their career advisor.
Yeah, I'm over here. Typically, how many courses do students take quarterly, and do they fulfill their major requirements first or the core requirements first?
So in order to graduate from the University of Chicago, students need 4,200 units, typically 42 courses total. So if you do the math in your head real fast, then you'll find that they can take 3 courses half of the time here and 4 courses half of the time here. So we actually spend a good amount of time Monday and Tuesday of O week talking to students about this and letting them hear from upper class students about their own experiences and how they made that choice. The other thing is that we have a fairly long add drop period here. So students actually can drop a course up through the end of third week of any quarter, and that course will completely disappear from their transcript. And so that means that students might start off a quarter with registered for 4 courses and then decide one of them should go for the benefit of the other courses, or something like that. And so it might oscillate a little bit for students, but all of our students at the undergraduate level, with very few exceptions, are expected to be in at least 3 classes, 300 units each term. And students, based on their interests, will work with their advisor to think about when is the good time to take 4, either based on what courses are offered, or how your student feels about the seasons, or whether they have fluctuating responsibilities for athletics or an RSO or things like that. Everyone does core first, in the sense that everyone is going to take humanities their first year on campus, and then most students are also taking math courses. If they're interested at all in the sciences, they're oftentimes starting their science courses in their first year. They might be doing social science core. So what we try and do is we try and encourage them to do the core first, because those courses are going to be foundational, right? And so you want to have something that you can build upon. And the other thing that the core does is that it exposes students to things very broadly. And so if they do the core early, they might find that they have an interest that they never knew existed. So we don't want them to put it off too long.
Hello. I have a question about the grading system. Rumors have it that on average GPA is a 3.2 in University of Chicago. And I wonder whether that particular, I don't know, philosophy or something on grading puts our kids at disadvantage compared to other comparable universities. Let's say Harvard on average is A. So is there any discussion about the grading system and what is the philosophy behind it?
Okay. So apparently everyone knows that at Harvard everyone gets an A, right? So, but that means that everybody knows, right? So the student from Harvard who's applying with a 4.0, people are like, yeah, well, it's a Harvard 4.0, okay? So similarly, if any of you were at, I think, did Career Advancement have any pre-health professions people at their session? So they work with med schools, right? Famous, med schools, law schools, famous for really caring about the GPA. We have advisors in career advancement who work with students who are interested in those areas. Those advisors also work closely with the graduate programs across the country to help them understand our curriculum, to help them understand our student culture and our academic culture here. So if your student wants to pursue any of those disciplines that are traditionally very GPA focused, they should pursue them, okay? They should not get their heart set on a 4.0. Nobody should get their heart set on a 4.0, okay? As far as a general philosophy goes, faculty have complete control over the grades in their own classes. So there's no formula, there's no expectation that, okay, you're gonna do a bell curve and it's gonna look like this. That's not the case, okay? And so there is no sort of one thing about what to expect in any class, really. There is no published average GPA for the college. That's intentional. We don't want them to worry about it, right? They have more than enough things to worry about. And oftentimes my students are surprised when I say, I have never applied for a job that wanted my GPA or my transcript. I need it for grad school, but I've never needed it for a job. And they're really surprised by that, right? Because up until this point, like, GPA was their identity. So it's one of those transitions that they make. I'm gonna ask Nick to say something about sort of GPA and what he works with in terms of competitive scholarships.
Yeah, in our experiences, it hasn't necessarily held our students at a disadvantage in any way, shape, or form. It's really just sort of about building the best case you can as an applicant, which generally speaking is much more than your GPA. That said, there are the occasional scholarship that does have like a GPA cutoff, but those are few and far between. So I would echo the sentiments Colby laid out.
Oh, I just wanted to follow up. So does that mean that for law school admission, you actually have some success with lower GPAs? Because I mean, I have a lot of friends on the law school at UVA who say they only look at GPA in admission. So I'm wondering if you have like a system for working on that issue?
So, career advancement has a designated person. She is a JD. She has practiced. She's actually also married to a lawyer, who is the designated pre-law school advisor. So we encourage all students who are potentially interested in going to law school to be in touch with her. She does both one-on-one meetings with students and also works with them throughout the application process, as well as doing events and workshops throughout the year to get students to think about what is law school, why would I want to or need to go there, and what does it mean to be a lawyer? What is it like, and is that something I'm actually interested in? So she covers kind of all of that, right? Law school is famous, kind of like med school, for looking at the numbers more than anything else, not just GPA, but LSAT, right? But one of the things to consider is that both for law schools and for medical schools, the average age at matriculation is going up, which means that fewer and fewer students are going straight from undergrad into that professional grad school training. So they're doing something in between. And that thing probably doesn't have a GPA on it. But hopefully that thing is relevant to law school or med school or what they want to do in the future. And hopefully, like Nick said, they're able to kind of pull that thread and paint the picture that says, I'm interested in this, and these are the things I did intentionally to get there, right? And so the same way we look at advising in basically all of our relationships in a holistic manner, we encourage students to think about their applications to anything more holistically and not just about the numbers. There are schools that look at just numbers, right? There will always be that, we can't control it. But the pre-law advisor, just like the pre-health advisor, knows the schools and knows kind of like the history of what types of students they tend to like and not like, and they're working with students to think about what are the range of schools that you're going to apply to and why.
Hi. It's a follow-up question to what the gentleman asked about the course requirements. You said about that kids need 42 classes to graduate, right? If a kid has, say, 3 college-level courses, accredited courses already done, does it mean that they can do 3 courses short, so they can graduate by taking 39 classes? Or does it mean that they can take other classes, but they'll have to do the 42?
Right. So something to know, many of our students come in with credit, right? Either from an accreditation exam, from AP, fewer from transfer, but some transfer credit. And so what that does is that provides students wiggle room. If the 3 classes of credit that they have go towards the requirements that they need within the 42, then you're right, they would only need to complete the 39 classes. Something to know, by and large, and Colby, you can tell me if this is the same case for your students, most of my students take more classes than they have to take. Because they bring in all this AP credit and then they never use it because they find classes they want to take that they're interested in. And so ultimately, if a student came in with no credit, they could take the 6 quarters of the 3 classes and the 6 quarters of the 4 classes. If they have credit, they could either then only take the 39 classes, or they could end up taking more classes than they need. But specifically, a student must be full-time, except for very few exceptions. So that means that regardless of how many credits they bring in, they need to be enrolled in at least 3 classes per quarter. But as I said, many students end up graduating with much more credit than they need.
I'm still not clear on how they're assigned their advisor. And I mean, my daughter wants to do political science and Chinese. Now she's talking about taking Arabic too. But like, is the person, have they looked at how she applied and what she was interested in, or is there going to be someone who's more interested in Chinese or political science, or are the advisors more general, I mean, in knowing everything, and then they pass her on to someone else? And also, if she doesn't like her advisor, if you guys don't get along, or, you know, like, do people change their advisor? I mean, because it seems like this relationship is 4 years here at the university. I just wondered about that.
So I neglected to mention that all of the advisors are generalists. So except for 2 particular majors that move to a specific advisor, every advisor has a mix of everything. So typically what happens is in all of our copious amounts of free time, we have been looking at who are our new students. We are looking at their preparation to get here. We're looking at what they put in their application in terms of what they wanted to study and why. We're looking at, and anything that we have right now about, do they plan to participate in sports? Do they have work study? To try and get a picture of the student. We also, from the very first thing tomorrow morning, we have them fill out these index cards and ask them for pieces of information that are going to help us figure out what makes the most sense for them. So your daughter will have been assigned to a random advisor who may have a background in Chinese or Arabic or political science and may not. But no matter, will be well-versed with all of those things. If your daughter does want to do Chinese, I hope she's an early morning person because they like to teach their classes at like 8:30. So that's one thing, that we're all generalists and we just, whatever the student is interested in that moment, that's what we talk about. As far as, what happens if that student-advisor relationship just doesn't click? So we always ask students to give it a go and actually meet with their advisor, right? And not just decide like, I didn't like their letter, I don't like their picture, or, my roommate has this person and really likes them. We want them to actually meet with their assigned advisor. And if it turns out that they really don't click, then they can ask to switch. Oftentimes, we will be asking them questions about what they're actually looking for, so that if we're going to switch their advisor, we can make a better match. But yeah, so that is a possibility. It actually doesn't happen that often. So yeah.
Just a quick question. How many students are assigned per advisor?
Gosh, I don't know the numbers here, do you? 60? Yeah, sorry, neither one of us have full loads, so we're like, I don't know. So we think the typical full-time advisor has about 260 students. That would be spread not completely evenly across all 4 years, but they'd have a mix of all 4 years. That might seem like a really high number because we're trying to get to know them all individually. Shockingly, we actually do. And also, like when we go to conferences with other academic advisors nationwide, our caseload is the envy of everyone else. Yeah, right? Yes. So Jeremy, when he worked at another institution, had 500. So that's 2 things that we do differently here is that, one, your students are actually assigned to an advisor, so they're meeting with the same person all the time. They have that kind of longevity. But 2, our numbers are actually pretty low compared to others.
Something else, maybe and the students will know this, if there's ever an advising emergency, which there very rarely is, but if their advisor is in a meeting and they just need an answer now, we always have an advisor on call that the student can talk to. And so they're never without support if they need it. But like I said, advising emergencies don't really exist.
Do the students get an academic, like once they declare a major, do they then get an additional advisor, like in that major?
So it varies by department. Every academic department that has majors or minors on offer has a typically faculty member who is the, quote, undergraduate program chair. Okay, that is always a point person that students can meet with. But from there, other departments have different models. Like, for instance, computer science has an undergraduate program chair and a major advisor and a minors advisor, right? Other areas have gone the preceptor route and have a whole bunch of advanced graduate students that are working more directly with undergrads. So every department has structured it differently, but yes, there is additional support once a student declares a major, or even as they're trying to think about it. And a lot of times, departments will offer workshops, seminars, meetings that are either from anywhere from like just social and come into the building and get to know us to like, here's what the third years need to know right now to prepare for fourth year. So the departments will offer those sort of specific things for students.
I think we probably have time for just one more question. Thanks.
Sure. Colby, I think that you had mentioned something about pass-fail when you were talking about language requirements, and that wasn't pass-fail. Can you talk about whether pass-fail is an option and when students have to make that decision, what classes it's offered for?
So I mentioned before that there are no sort of universal rules about grading expectations for faculty. So the way pass-fail works here is that an individual teaching faculty member can decide whether or not they want to offer pass-fail as an option in their course that quarter. And they can decide how they want to convey that to their students. So what we do on the advising side is we tell our students, if you're thinking about withdrawing from a course, exploring pass-fail, anything like that, come talk to us, right? Because first of all, you got to find out whether or not pass-fail is an option. And then you got to find out if pass-fail is an option, how is your faculty member defining a pass? And when do you have to decide, right? So there's that part of, is it available in a class? But then there's the other part of how can a class that you got a P grade in count towards your degree, right? And so then there are specific rules that, for instance, a P grade cannot be used towards any of your core requirements. And a P grade also does not satisfy the language competency requirement. And then every major has their own rules about no Ps, only 2 Ps, things like that. So it's going to vary, and it can be really kind of confusing. And so that's why we tell our students, just bring us anything, right? So there is such a thing as pass-fail here, but how often students take it. I think especially when students are still paying close attention to their GPA, they might feel like taking a P is safer than risking a B minus, for instance. And then they come and talk to me and they say, well, what if someone's looking at your transcript and they assume that's a D? They're like, oh, they assume that's a D? They might assume that's a D. Oh, so I shouldn't do that. Maybe not, right? And so it's those types of things. And honestly, when I was a student, I was in a class, everyone in there was taking it for fun. Nobody needed this class. We all assumed we could take it pass-fail. And we went in like the week before the final, and the instructor's like, no, I'm not going to give this pass-fail. So everyone either had to decide to withdraw from the class or take it, right? So we always tell our students, like, think about it, ask about it early.
All right. Well, thank you all very much.
So if you have any other advising questions, if you go to convocation, we'll be out there, and then at the reception in the courtyard, all the advisors will be there. So you can feel free to ask any questions there.